Welcome to the Wolverine Confidential Podcast, brought to you by Corewell Health. I am Andrew Kahn.
I'm Ryan Zook.
And I'm Aaron McMahon.
15th ranked Michigan heads to Los Angeles to face USC on Saturday. Why is this such a critical game for the Wolverines? And what do they need to do to come out on top? We discuss that and more coming up on Wolverine Confidential. Okay, Aaron and Ryan, good to be with you two here on Thursday afternoon, October 9th, 2 days before Michigan will play USC at the Los Angeles Memorial Coliseum. Kickoff is set for 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time, 4:30 out there, and it will air on NBC. You know, these kickoff times, I feel like they're going with that kind of that basic time more and more in the game notes than as opposed to 7:35 or 7:37. I don't know. We'll see if that's accurate, if that's when it's actual kickoff, or if the networks have seen that I mentioned the exact kickoff time here and they've gotten to Michigan Sports Information Department. I don't know. I guess we'll see. They want people tuning in.
My guess is it'll be a little after 7:30.
Right.
How much I don't know. I don't think NBC is as bad as Fox, but I guess we'll find out Saturday night.
All right, let's talk about the kind of the week that was in Schembechler Hall. Talking to Sharon Moore and players. They're gonna leave early. They're leaving later today for Los Angeles, which is a change, and we'll get to that. But what else other than that kind of stood out from this week of interviews?
News-wise, there wasn't a ton. Sharon Moore did categorize offensive lineman Giovanni El-Hadi and Brady Norton as probable, along with Hogan Hansen, the backup tight end. So it sounds like we're probably going to get them all back, or Michigan will get them all back Saturday. We don't know what capacity they're in necessarily, but it sounds like they're going to certainly be available to play. Obviously that matters, especially at tight end when you're dealing with lower body injury, ankle injury, foot injuries, and you're trying to block 300-pound men. So it does factor maybe more so than other spots. But I'm leaning toward Hadi's probably going to return the starting lineup on Saturday at left guard. That's probably going to shuffle some things around on the right side. We'll see what happens there. But Michigan's offensive line didn't look so hot last Saturday, so it certainly opened the door for some changes to be had. This is probably the ideal spot for Hadi to return after his ankle injury. So I'm expecting him back in the lineup on Saturday night.
Anything else, Ryan? What would you say was your?
Overall, this team's getting healthy at the right time during a pivotal stretch here. Is quite a few weeks until their next bye. So I think the bye week did them well, and they're coming in pretty healthy against a really big swing game on their schedule. And I guess as far as personnel wise, it looks like Andrew Marsh is going to get a lot more opportunities at the receiver position. I would expect it to be a lot of Donovan McCulley, Marsh, and Samaj Morgan moving forward. Channing Goodwin obviously had some drops and wasn't very productive in the first 4 games of the season, and it kind of paved the way, opened the door for Andrew Marsh, and he kind of took it and ran with it on Saturday against Wisconsin with 4 catches for 80 yards. Had a really nice catch near the sideline, brings some wiggle and some athleticism to that position. And but other than that, I mean, it's this team's pretty much fully healthy, ready to go here, and should be a fascinating game on Saturday.
I should point out too that Sharon did start the Justice Haynes for Heisman campaign on Monday. I think it's maybe a little too early for that, but he went ahead and did it anyway. So we'll see where things go if Justice can keep this pace up, because if he can, I do think there'll be a spot for him there in New York City at the end of the year. But he's got to keep it up, and that's going to be pivotal. And that starts Saturday. 5 straight 100-yard rushing games, as we all know. He's been very effective on the ground. He's been their workhorse running back. Likened him a little bit to Blake Corum. It's odd because Blake had that 8 straight games of 100-yard rushing in 2022. And Justice at 5. So I think there's maybe internally some of that he wants to try and break. But Sharon Moore he started the campaign this week. We'll see where things go.
I mean, it is a really good year for him to kind of make a run because a lot of the preseason favorites are off to slow starts and have fallen down the odds board. So yeah, it's still early, like you said, but I mean, if there's going to be a year where a running back has a legitimate shot at winning it for the first time since Derrick Henry in I think 2015, like this could be a good spot, and a big game against USC could move the needle a little bit.
Yeah, it's so interesting getting back to kind of the stuff about like the injuries and who might be back. I saw like this week the SEC does like a midweek injury report because I saw the Oklahoma quarterback that the Michigan faced earlier this year, John Mateer. Was they were optimistic maybe about him potentially coming back this week because he was of his status on the report on Wednesday, and then with like USC's guys, for example, they media was allowed to watch practice so they could see who came out and who was dressed and in full pads and how they were looking as teams come back. But yeah, that's obviously not the case with us here covering Michigan in the Big Ten, so it's a little more guesswork involved as we get closer. All right, yeah, as Sharon kind of said on Monday, and Aaron, you had reported even earlier, like the team is flying out tonight after guys are done with classes, which is a day earlier than they normally would, right? For a Saturday game, they usually go out on a Friday, the day before.
Yeah, that's the change this year. Other schools have done this in the past, either flying west to east or east to west. They seem to think more time is going to help them. Michigan got off to a slow start last year at Washington. They went down 14-0 rather quickly. I guess you could put some of the blame on maybe the travel and everything else. There's obviously Michigan just wasn't very good, and they had quarterback issues and everything else last year. But nonetheless, they're trying to eliminate any possible excuse. And they're going to go out there tonight. They're going to land in Los Angeles, evening Thursday. That'll give them a full day on Friday in Los Angeles to adjust to the time. They're going to go through their Friday walkthrough at the Chargers practice facility there in El Segundo, just outside of Los Angeles. And then they'll get ready to play the game on Saturday. So there'll be a long stretch of time there they'll get to spend there in LA. I mean, remember, they don't play until 4:30 p.m. Eastern time local there. So it's going to be a long time spent there. It'll give them hopefully it'll give them enough time to adjust to the 3-hour time difference. And then maybe they'll get off to a better start on Saturday. And that was one of the reasons Sharon cited. They just got off to a really sluggish, slow start last year against Washington. And it was true. They did. I mean, they went down 14-0. And to their credit, if you remember, go back and look, they came back and took the lead there in the third quarter and then lost the lead there in the fourth. But, there were obviously a lot of things that play there. But they want to try to avoid the slow start this year.
I would be really curious to see what the splits are in the NFL with Eastern time zone teams going to the West Coast and how they fare, because yeah, like the numbers are pretty staggering. And Andrew wrote about this today on MLive.com. 4-12 road teams going from the East Coast or Eastern time zone to the West Coast since the Big Ten expanded to 18 teams, and 6-10, I think, Andrew, against the spread. So there's for some reason they just can't either start on time or put together a complete performance. But it doesn't seem like it's that much or that big of a deal in the NFL, or talked about that much in the NFL. So maybe it's still a relatively new thing for these guys in the Big Ten. But I mean, geez, it's still a big game. You would think any time of the day you would be able to get up for a big game. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see if this change has any effect of the performance on the field for the Wolverines.
I'm glad you brought that up because there are NFL teams that are flying out early. In fact, the Chargers play the Miami Dolphins Sunday. They're flying out, from my understanding, they're flying out Friday afternoon, Friday evening. They're going to practice Friday morning at the Bolt before Michigan gets there, and then they're leaving and going to Miami after that. So they're flying early. I do think you see that more in the NFL where they do go out 2 days early. Or a day early, but 2 days before the game, just to adjust and everything else. Now, it's a little bit different, right? They're professional athletes. They really have nothing else to do. These players are technically still student athletes and have class and other obligations. But, and Sharon mentioned, he talked to Wink Martindale about this, right? Wink was a veteran NFL coach. He knows all about the challenges and the travel and everything else. And it sounds like Wink was complimentary or in favor of the idea of going out early. So this certainly is something I think NFL teams have certainly dealt with better. And look, up until a couple of years ago, before the expanded conferences, you really didn't have to worry about this a whole lot. Now with 4 West Coast Big Ten teams, it's becoming an issue, or it's becoming a hot topic, and I think you're seeing in real time Big Ten teams trying to figure it out.
Ryan, you did have those numbers correct. I'm glad you cited them before me. I've got no power here at my house as they work on the lines in the backyard. So, some of my handwritten notes a little hard to read here in the dark. But yes, those numbers are correct. The only thing is it was a Central Time Zone schools too. So all the other Big Ten teams, yep, going out there. 4-12 overall since this started happening last year and into this year, and 6-10 against the spread, which obviously takes into account the fact that it's a road game and the quality of the opponent and all that. And I'm aware like this wasn't the most like scientific study that I did. Like, road teams don't do well generally. Like, you're obviously at a disadvantage just from that. You could look at the West Coast teams coming east, a challenge also, and yeah, any of that stuff. But the fact is, in this game, Michigan is going across multiple time zones to the west, and that has not been good for teams so far in the Big Ten. And including, again, I realize it's just cherry picking one example, but you have last week where you had Penn State go and lose to UCLA. So just another example that it's a challenge. And yeah, Michigan doing something at least to try to combat it a little bit.
Before we move on today, I really wish our listeners could actually see Andrew right now on the video stream of us doing this podcast, because his power did go out just before we were about to hit record, and now it's like you just see his like computer stream illuminating his face, but other than that, it's complete darkness in his screen. So it's quite the visual.
Yes, I do this here in the basement, so yeah, doesn't help. It's a real Blair Witch Project vibes this episode. But all right, let's get into why this is such an important game for Michigan. Ryan, you wrote about it on MLive.com this week. Something we kind of hinted at a little bit in the episode earlier this week. But yeah, this is critical when you look at the rest of Michigan's schedule.
Yeah, very, very much so. I mean, I would believe that Michigan is going to be favored in their next 5 games after this one. Right now, they're like a 2.5 point underdog against USC. But after that, I mean, you have Washington, which could be a tough game, and obviously the Huskies beat Michigan last year. But again, they're coming to the Eastern Time Zone for the second time in 3 weeks. That's a lot of travel for them. You got Purdue, Michigan State, Maryland, and Northwestern, not all in that order, but I mean, those just seem like very, very winnable games for the Wolverines before the ending the year against Ohio State. And if you run the table, that Ohio State game might, I mean, yeah, it might be to get into the Big Ten championship, but win or lose, you could probably be potentially be getting into the playoff regardless if you're able to win this game. So a lot at stake here for Michigan.
And this was one of those toss-up games I think most of us had before the season started, right? When you looked at Michigan's schedule, the games that they needed to win, this was one of them. They lost to Oklahoma in the first, they beat Nebraska the second one, and this is USC. If they can win this one, it certainly clears the deck. As you point out, the schedule is fairly easy. I would make the case Washington's probably closer to a 50-50 matchup than at least I thought going into the season. Huskies very much could be 5-1 next week coming to Ann Arbor, but again, they're going to have the travel disadvantage and everything else. So this is certainly a win Saturday night in Los Angeles would do wonders for this team, and I think help clear like the stain of last year, right? Like they were a similar situation this time last year going out west, and things fell apart on them. A little bit different team. I think they do certainly had an upgrade at quarterback, but this game Saturday could very much kind of determine the trajectory of the season, right? If they lose Saturday night, they can't afford to lose again. Otherwise, they could potentially be kicked out, not get in the playoff, given how weak the schedule is, and they likely won't have a marquee win going forward. So Saturday night's pivotal for several reasons.
Life is beautiful and fragile. We fall. We get tired. And sometimes we get sick. But with Corewell Health, we are also strong. We fight disease. We battle cancer. We come together. We come back. We push forward. When the body breaks, we break through. Corewell Health. We can.
Yeah. You mentioned last year's game. I mean, Michigan won that one despite, 32 yards of passing. I look it up again, and it was mind-boggling to me that game. But that was, of course, Kalel Mullings kind of putting the team on his back, especially on that final drive, and Michigan, with the kind of last-minute win, 27-24 over USC. Yeah, this USC team, new quarterback, Jaden Mayava, who kind of took over, late last year, and the bowl game he got the start, and now he's just thriving. I mean, again, as I mentioned, ESPN had him as the number one quarterback so far when they ranked them all a couple weeks ago. In the top three in several like key statistical categories, and he's got some really talented receivers, really good running back around him, and the offensive line seems to be doing better. USC's defense not quite as good, but they're still up there. They look improved from last year. So this seems to be a real challenge for Michigan. But to me, just the quarterback and kind of slowing this USC offense is kind of the matchup to watch within the game.
That exactly right. I mean, Michigan's going to try and limit like USC's possessions, right? Like the higher, and I said this last week, I think on our podcast, but the higher scoring this game gets, it certainly favors USC because that's what they want to do, right? They want to be explosive. They want to outscore you, and that's kind of their magic win games. So Michigan's gonna have to slow them down and limit the explosive plays. USC is, I mean, they got 6 plays of 60 yards this year. I mean, they're as explosive as they come. They can run the ball, they can throw the ball. The quarterback's fantastic, as we said. And then look, it's a Lincoln Riley team. They want to score points, they want to get up and down the field, and they want to do it quickly. So it's going to be up to Michigan's defense, I think, to in a way to win this game. And look, you got a strength in USC in their passing attack, going against a perceived weakness, right? Michigan secondary. They haven't played particularly well this year. You can make the case they've been the weak point of the Michigan defense through 5 games. So it's going to be a challenge for the Michigan secondary to figure out. I think they're certainly going to try and get home at Mayava and get some pressure and disrupt some things and obviously get everything else, get their hands on him. But they're going to have to limit the big plays on the back end, and that's going to be for me, it's going to be the challenge. I know USC's ranked, I think, top 20 in rush defense nationally. I look at the numbers and I don't see it there. They gave up 142 yards to Georgia Southern. They gave up 171 rushing yards to Illinois. I think this is a game where Michigan can run the ball. I think they can run they can get down the field in both ways, running the football and throwing the football. So I'm anticipating more of a higher scoring game. I think Michigan's going to be able to move the football. I think this could be a big game for Bryce Underwood. I think it's ultimately going to come down to the Michigan defense, whether they can slow USC enough to keep them off the scoreboard just enough to win this game. I think they can, but this is going to be a close game. I'm looking forward to it. It wouldn't surprise me if it ends up being a shootout.
Yeah, you're exactly right, Aaron. I mean, this USC defense hasn't been very good this year. I mean, giving up 31 points to Michigan State, 34 points to Illinois, 20 points against even like Georgia Southern. They haven't really been an elite unit so far. And yes, the offensive numbers are impressive, but if Michigan's defense can hold USC to under 30 points, I mean, you really got to like Michigan's chances to win this game, because I think, there is going to be opportunities for the Wolverines to put points on the board.
Interesting. I'm kind of going a little different way maybe with this game, but we can get into our predictions. One thing I'll note, just an interesting thing, that there's a connection between these two programs. Weston and Aaron Zernickel. I'm probably not pronouncing it correctly, but they're married to each other. Weston is USC's recruiting director. Aaron is Michigan's director of football operations. She was Aaron Dunstan when they hired her away from Ohio State before last season. The sister of Jillian Dunstan, who used to play for Michigan basketball and coach there as well. She's not anymore, but interesting, family connection there between the two programs. USC is I mean, they certainly are flashy. They have that high powered offense, but as Michigan defensive line coach Lou Esposito said yesterday, it's the tougher team that's going to win. Toughness travels, and I guess it's a question of how much USC has improved from last year in the trenches, because that'll be so key. And it does seem like, yeah, their offensive line has done a lot better job this year. Only 4 sacks allowed. Part of that is having, a quarterback that can move around. But yeah, I think they're a little improved in that area. But let's get into the predictions. What do you guys think? Is Michigan going to go on the road and win this critical game?
I think they do. I was handicapping this game all day yesterday, just in my head, strengths, weaknesses. The travel's obviously a factor. You look at Michigan's roster, and how maybe the offensive line hasn't played up to snuff just yet. But I just think Wink Martindale defensively, I think he's going to have enough answers for the USC defense. We've seen him; he's done very well this year so far in adjusting. I think that's going to be the case on Saturday, and I think Michigan's just dynamic enough offensively, with the ability to connect on the deep balls and get enough big gains on the ground to make this thing work. So I'm picking Michigan to win this thing outright. I picked them against the spread in our picks yesterday. I'm picking them to win this outright, a close game, a higher scoring game. Because I do think USC is going to score points. There's no doubt about it. I think Michigan's got to limit the damage. So I'm gonna go Michigan 34, USC 31. Wolverines come out victorious.
Well, how about that? I also have a Michigan winning by 3 points, 31-28. Kind of for the similar reasons. I think there is going to be some points put on the board, but listening to Lou Esposito yesterday kind of sold me. It's about being the toughest team and winning in the trenches is going to win. And I just have never really thought, at least under Lincoln Riley, I've never thought of USC as a tough team. And we've seen a lot of toughness in recent years for the Wolverines. So yeah, this flashy stuff might work to put a few points on the board for the Trojans, but when it comes down to it in the fourth quarter of a close game, I'm going to go with the tougher team and go with Michigan.
All very good points for sure. Michigan was a consensus play in our Big Ten picks with, the three of us and, 2 other college football writers as well at MLive, with Michigan getting 2.5 points. We all took Michigan to cover.
Is that a second straight week?
That is a second straight week that Michigan is consensus. They did not cover last week, but of course, won comfortably, which is all that really matters for these predictions. So, but I'm going the other way on this. I've got USC winning. I'll say 25-23 to fit with be consistent with what I'm saying. Yeah, I wonder how often that I've had a loss from Michigan. You guys have both had a win. I don't think that's happened too often in our picking history. But yeah, I just think it's tough. It's real tough to make this trip, and USC is good coming off a bye. And yeah, the explosive playmakers. I think they're going to be good enough in the trenches. I don't see it as a super high scoring game, obviously, but I would not be surprised, of course, if Michigan won. This is one of those toss-up games we talked about before the year, but I don't think Michigan gets it. I think they just come out a little bit short and leave Los Angeles with a loss.
I definitely see what you're saying there too, and especially if USC can provide enough protection for Mayava. It could be a long day for Michigan's corners and secondary, because as we've seen, they can be burned by some double moves and have had some hiccups in coverage this year. And the longer these receivers have to get open, the longer of a day it could be for the secondary.
USC receiver Mekhi Lemon's probably going to be one of the best receivers Michigan's faced so far this year. He's a talented guy. I'm really curious to see how they hold up against him. I just think USC realizes their strength. Looking on tape, they look at the Michigan secondary. They've been, the biggest maybe weakness of the Michigan defense so far. So they're going to try and throw the football. I think they're going to test Michigan's defensive backs early. It wouldn't surprise me if they hit some big plays early. But Michigan's got it. They got to be able to adjust. So I don't know. I'm optimistic for some reason. I think this team is better than they were last year. I think they're more prepared. I think they've got more talent. That being said, no result would shock me here, right? Like if they get off to another slow start, wouldn't surprise me at all, given the travel and the new environment and everything else. So I don't know. We're going to learn. I think we'll learn a lot more about this team after Saturday than we have through the first 5 games. So I'm really looking forward to it.
Absolutely. Games like this, you're just kind of going with your gut at some point for how you think it's going to go. Ryan?
Yeah, no, and it's a must-win game for USC too. They already have a loss in the Big Ten play, and obviously pressure is mounting on Lincoln Riley. Like this is if they're going to take the next step under him, like they need a signature win, and this would fall under that category. So a lot of pressure on the Trojans as well.
I will have more coverage leading up to, during, and after the game with Aaron on site at the Coliseum in LA for Michigan USC on Saturday night. Check out MLive.com/Wolverines for all the coverage. Thanks for listening.